Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Orange County School Board's work session, which has been scheduled for today for the purpose of discussing the strategic plan update. The public will not have an opportunity to participate in this work session to provide public comment because it's not a regularly scheduled school board meeting. No action will be taken, and there is no period for non-agenda items. At this time, before we begin, I'll ask the board and any members of the public if they would like to join us in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Now for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Dr. Vasquez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon, we will be presenting to the board our beginning of the year data for our strategic plan and our key performance indicators. Dr. Border, our Chief Strategy Officer, will lead the presentation. Dr. Border.
Good afternoon, Chair Jacobs, members of the board, Superintendent Vasquez, Chief Strategy Officer Harold Border, with our Senior Specialist for the Strategy Office, Lisa Pinheiro, here to provide you a first quarter strategic plan progress update. Today we will review the data that we currently have for our student performance. We'll review our key performance indicator progress. We'll talk about the next steps for our strategic plan. We'll also talk about our next steps for our development of our portrait of a graduate, and then we will turn it back over to the superintendent and board for comments and questions. So we'll begin with a review of our data. It's important to note that for 2022-23, we are comparing state scrubbed vendor files to currently state scrubbed data to current vendor files which are unscrubbed. So for state early literacy, our kindergarten last year at this time were 50% at or above grade level. Currently, we are at 49%. For first grade, 54% prior, currently 50%. Second grade, 25%, currently 30%. As we transition to STAR reading, last year for kindergarten, 73%, currently 100%. First grade, 59%, currently 81%. Second grade, 51%, and currently 51%. For STAR math, previously kindergarten, 61%, currently 63%. First grade, 82%, currently 80%. Second grade, 63%, and currently 64%. So now we'll transition to the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking, and we'll begin with our English Language Arts reading for elementary. And here again, we are comparing state scrub data last year for the state and Orange County Public Schools to current vendor files for the state and Orange County Public Schools. So for third grade last year, the state was 22%, currently 22%. Orange County Public Schools, 25%, currently 24%. For fourth grade, the state was 32% year prior, currently 33%. The district was 36%, and currently OCPS is 34%. Fifth grade, the state was 34% prior, currently 36%. OCPS was 36%, and currently we are 38%.
Harold, before you move on, Member Hester-Dental has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have I think you clarified this, but I'm not clear. The first column, the 22-23, level 3 plus, that is from the end of last year? You're not comparing the first 9 weeks of last year to this year's first 9 weeks.
So we're comparing PM1 last year, Dr. Casterdental, to PM1 currently, yes.
Okay.
The difference is that the files we're comparing last year, those are scrubbed files.
What does that mean?
So that means when the data is scrubbed, all of the students who are going to count, all students count, but when they look at data, students have to be with us for both FTE windows when it's coming into the district overall calculation. So the data that we currently have is unscrubbed vendor file data versus the scrubbed data that we're comparing it to for last year. The data just concluded, and we won't have scrubbed state data until after the state board meeting, which is taking place this week.
Okay. Is there a way, or can you add that descriptor at the tops of those headings that this is what we're actually comparing, the first? Okay, and then do you expect the scrubbed data from this year to be much different than what we had last year? Does it make that much of a difference once the data is scrubbed?
It's hard to say on that, Dr. Casterdental. Typically, there can be a 1 to 2% variance with fast data, typically in scrubbing. When it comes to the STAR data, that is a platform that it remains open. So there can be a variance of 8 to 12% when it comes to STAR early literacy and STAR reading. For example, students take STAR assessments for accelerated reader, for example. They continue to take STAR assessments for intervention. Whereas FAST, they're taking the assessment one time and then we have the data. So the STAR data can continue to fluctuate and change, whereas the FAST data, grades 3 through 10, there's less fluctuation and you'll see less adjustment on that. Now that is also to take into account that the cut scores are currently being set, and when those come out from the Department of Education, there could be an adjustment from last year to this year based on any changes in cut scores.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for getting that clarification for all of us. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just another clarification. So when we look at these numbers and we're looking at 22%, when we do that first iteration, the PM1, we're testing on items that students have not been taught yet. Is that correct? Or are we just, I thought we were.
No, PM1, Ms. Gallo, they are being assessed on information that we've covered up to this point of the pacing of the school year.
So it does match like the scope and sequence and the pacing of, okay, because I was under the impression when we did in the conversations around the new FAST testing that they would literally be able to go as far as they could, or there would be more information than when we would have taught them. So you would expect the numbers to kind of be lower in the beginning and then edge up. But that's not the case.
No, it is the case.
So I'm really looking at 22% or 24% proficiency.
There's both parts of that, Ms. Gallo. So the students, it is an assessment that will adjust to the students' responses. And so students can progress further, but these are the overall results.
And Vice Chair, I actually was wondering if you might have been referring to the math scores.
No, so
Okay,
these tests
okay.
were supposed to be like interactive, that it would take the student as far as they could go. But I guess for some reason, I was under the assumption that the spacing wasn't together, that it wasn't, the scope and the sequence wasn't always in line. The FAST testing didn't always line up with our scope and sequence, and they may be asked, and that could be for the math as well. Thank you.
That, Dr. Vasquez, well, we'll get to the math when we get to the math. Because that sounds very similar. Dr. Vasquez, yes.
So I want to clarify, make sure we understand that the PM1 is reflective of the standards at the end of the year, and it also then it does adapt to the student performance. So, and I think that's what Dr. Borda was saying, that it has both. So
It's not just the first 9 weeks.
correct. It's reflective of standards at the end of the year, and then it does adapt to the student performance. And we'll get Dr. Sasser to clarify, because that's the information I have from her. And so she can put that in an email to make sure we understand
Okay.
exactly what it means. But
Because I think as we're looking at these numbers and we're looking at 24% proficiency for third grade, it could be, and I know these are scrubbed or non-scrubbed numbers, but it literally could be because we are testing on a full year worth of content and they've only gone 9 weeks.
yes.
Yes, or not even 9 weeks, because this happens within the first 2 or 3 weeks of school. With all the learning, the summer, if you encapsulate the summer learning loss, the fact that we're testing on curriculum that hasn't been taught, the 24% number isn't looking so bad now. I guess that's my point.
And the state is currently at 22% as well, to your point, Ms. Gallo.
Dr. Vasquez?
She may be able to respond. And it is a little complicated because it is adaptive, but it should cover all of the standards, and that's how we are able to monitor the progress during the 3 testing sessions.
Dr. Castellano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what's more important to compare is not 22, 23 to 23, 24 as much as it is the state percentage to the district percentage. And it looks like we are doing better than the state in each of those categories.
We currently are this year, yes.
Right
Dr.
there,
Castellano.
yes. So that's where I think the comparisons can be made. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Castellano. Member Gould?
I'm sorry, Dr. Border, I should have thought to ask this when we had our discussion.
No worries.
I don't really care what the state does. Where are we against the best of the best in the country? And where do we line up against Finland, Germany, Japan in reading excellence? I know you probably can't answer that right now. But I mean, I do care where we are in our state too, but I don't think that is the golden bar we're trying to get to. I think we want to be in line with the best of the best, and a lot of the infrastructure and changes that the superintendent and the team have made are all to grab at a higher bar than we might be achieving in the state.
So I'll talk with the team, Ms. Gould, and follow up with the board on that. I will add that we're going to be part of the National Assessment for Educational Progress, TUDA, this year, which will give us data to compare across the country, as well as how other countries are doing on specific grade levels when it comes to that assessment as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that additional information. Dr. Vasquez, it would be helpful to me not to take the board's time, but a follow-up with Ms. Sasser. I actually thought I understood this better than I think I understand it right this minute, but it's important to me that I do, so I'll just connect with her separately. All right, moving on. Oh, there she is. Unless she's going to step up to the plate and explain it now.
That would be great.
Please, Dr. Vasquez.
Dr. Sasser, we are in need of your expertise in clarifying or getting a better understanding. We were looking at comparison of PM1 data, and the question was raised if the assessment, the progress monitoring one session, includes standards that are covered throughout the year, which could be reflective of why some of the scores are low, or does it cover standards that are covered at the beginning of the year?
It's based on the full year of
And again, we can do this one-on-one separately if that's easier.
It's based on the full year of the standards, and then it's adaptive to each student as they're responding to questions.
Grades 4 is their prior year performance as a starting point.
Grades 4 through 10 also use the student's prior year performance as where they start on the adaptive assessment, and then move them forward based upon where they finished last year and how they start answering the questions this year.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, you want to carry on?
Okay, progressing to the Florida Assessment for Student Thinking for middle school. 6th grade, the state was 37% last year at this time. The Orange County Public Schools was 38%. Currently, the state is 41, and Orange County Public Schools is 43%. 7th grade, the state was 34%. Orange County Public Schools was 35%. Currently, the state remains at 34%, and the district is at 35%. For 8th grade, the state was 32%. The district was at 33%, and currently the state is at 32%, and Orange County Public Schools is at 32%. Progressing to Florida Assessment for Student Thinking for grades 9 and 10. Last year, PM1, the state was at 35%, Orange County Public Schools 36%. Currently, the state is at 37%, and Orange County Public Schools is at 37%. For 10th grade, the state was at 35%, Orange County Public Schools 36%. Currently, the state is at 36%, and Orange County Public Schools is at 34%. Progressing to Florida Assessment for Student Thinking for mathematics. Beginning with elementary school, prior year, state was at 9%. Orange County Public Schools 11%. Currently, the state at 10, and Orange County Public Schools at 11. 4th grade, the state was at 10%. Orange County Public Schools 11%. Currently, the state is at 12%. Orange County Public Schools is at 14%. 5th grade, the state was at 15%. Orange County Public Schools 13%. Currently, the state is at 16%, and Orange County Public Schools is at 19%. Progressing to middle school for the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking for mathematics. 6th grade, the state was at 19%. Orange County Public Schools 18%. Currently, the state is at 25%. Orange County Public Schools is at 29%. 7th grade, the state prior was at 19%. Orange County Public Schools 12%. Currently, the state is at 24%. Orange County Public Schools is at 13%. For 8th grade, the state prior year was 12%. Orange County Public Schools was 8%. Currently, the state is at 18%, and Orange County Public Schools is at 24%.
So if we can pause there for just a minute. I know we had an opportunity to talk about this, Superintendent and Dr. Border, but for the benefit of anyone looking at the math scores, particularly for 7th grade, seeing a much larger increase for the state than the district. Could you elaborate on why we might be seeing this discrepancy?
So thanks, Chair, for the question. To begin that conversation, we do have recommendations from the state on which assessments students take, and that also is coupled with information from our curriculum and digital learning department. And in Orange County Public Schools, we assess students based upon the course they're affiliated with. So, for example, students taking certain 6th grade mathematics course take 6th grade FAST assessment. If they're taking 6th grade accelerated mathematics course, International Baccalaureate, they also take 6th grade FAST assessment. However, when they move to 7th grade, if they are taking the accelerated mathematics course in 7th grade or International Baccalaureate middle years program in 7th grade, those students will take the 8th grade FAST assessment. And I believe that is not necessarily consistent across the state, which could speak to some of the fluctuation that you see there with the data.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair?
Do we have a percentage of those students that would be in those higher level classes taking the 8th grade versus the 7th grade?
We can certainly look into that and provide that for the board, Ms. Gallo.
Thank you.
Member Byrd?
Thank you, Chair. And we also have 7th graders taking algebra, right? So those students are not taking the 7th grade test either.
That is correct, Ms. Byrd. Students who are taking Algebra 1 or International Baccalaureate Middle Years Algebra 1 program, they take the Algebra 1 EOC, as well as our students who are taking geometry, which typically would be some of our 8th graders.
8th graders, right? Okay. And we don't know how students that are also taking algebra in 7th grade around the state, they don't take this either. But do we know what our rate of students compared to around the state is that are taking Algebra 1?
We can look into that, Ms. Byrd, and provide that and see what our Algebra 1 participation rate is compared to others. I know typically in the past it has been higher.
May I, Madam Chair?
Please, Superintendent, you're recognized.
And another point, there could be districts that have the students double. In other words, they may not be taking the algebra, they may be taking the algebra course, but they're taking the exam. And a few years ago, our district decided that we would not overtest. And so some of the scores here, although they're very low, mathematics as a result of the pandemic has seen the greatest decline and slow rebound. Additionally, our team is aware that the transition to the exam for 7th grade was a huge dip, and they have additional focus to ensure that the teachers of 7th grade are teaching the standards as well as emphasizing the ones that are on the exam, because it's not a one-to-one match.
Thank you. Vice Chair?
Thank you. When you do the percentages, if we could get the percentages of algebra students as well, like together with the higher ranking and then separate. I was unaware that districts were double dipping, which double testing. So it skews it. When you have districts that are double testing, it skews the data. And then when you look at it in relation to other districts that aren't over testing or double testing, it almost makes the state, and I know that we have a lot of work to do in mathematics, and that's not my point here. And I know that the superintendent is working to get those numbers up, but it almost makes the state number not valuable to Orange County at all because of the way they test versus the way others test, because it's not consistent. And any mathematician, which I am not, will tell you that that data is not valid. Dr. Sasser would tell us that's not valid data because it's not consistent data.
And again, I don't want to give the impression that all districts do this, but there is nothing that prohibits the district from, if they're taking, let's say, the algebra or the geometry course, from having them also take this, as they do sometimes with some of the advanced placement courses. So I don't know that it's enough to skew the data. Bottom line is that our results need a lot of improvement in mathematics, and we need to ensure that teachers have the necessary resources and supports to deliver the standards so that our students, when they take the exam, can demonstrate proficiency.
So kind of staying on that point for a minute, and I agree with superintendent and vice chair that math is an area that we need to work on, state needs to work on, nation needs to work on. No question about that. But if I'm understanding this correctly, it's not just that we don't have an apples to apples comparison, because some districts might be testing also for the grade level when a student is in geometry or algebra. But even if we take that out of the equation, if we have, let's say last year, 90% of our students weren't taking algebra. They were taking the 7th grade assessment. And this year, 90% of our students are taking algebra. So those students aren't going to be in this number. And if I understand this correctly, the students that are taking algebra are going to be your higher performing math students. So we've taken our higher performing math students out of our statistics here. And so even within the district, from one year to the next, we may not be doing an accurate comparison of how that cohort is progressing. So it is one of the things, and Dr. Border and I talked about it a little bit, that there are opportunities along the way for districts to use that to skew the numbers. And I'm certainly not suggesting that we do that, but I think the information that Member Castrodental and Member Gallo have asked for about the percentage of students, and if we could also have that for last year, it would just be helpful for us to try to get a little better barometer on how accurate the trend is. Does that make sense?
It
Dr.
does.
Vasquez?
And again, I want to go back and make sure that I didn't misspeak. I do not believe that if, let's say, a district is testing a student maybe who's in an algebra class and they're an 8th grader and they have them take the 8th grade assessment, I do not believe that that is skewing this data. I believe it's a small number that are doing that. There may have been a time when more were doing that because it was an assessment that was established. This is a new assessment as we're getting to learn more and more about it. At the end of the day, math across the board, even when we're looking at algebra, especially algebra in 9th grade, which are the students that are probably lower performing, because if they are higher performing, they would have probably taken the algebra in 7th or 8th grade. Those numbers are still very low. And in many cases, it just goes back to basic understanding, which needs to be addressed at the elementary level, so that when students are moving into middle school, they have a strong foundation and then are able to better grasp some of these concepts that are being taught to them in algebra, geometry, and other mathematics. So we will get you the statistics and the percentages that are in the various grade levels that are taking the advanced courses, so you can see how that compares.
Thank you. Member Castrodental?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This information is going to be on the scorecard, right, available for the public to see, or is it just for our internal?
It's uploaded, Dr. Castrodental, for the work session today. But as far as what's on the district scorecard, that's our key performance indicator outcomes. This data here is Progress 1 data, which at the end of the year, many of these data points will factor into our key performance indicator outcomes. But as of today, they're not district scorecard outcomes per se.
Okay. I wonder if it would be helpful to put just an asterisk or two at the bottom, kind of explaining the difference, like in that 7th grade math, when we're comparing the state to the district, about the population that we're testing may not be the same as other 7th grade just part of the discussion that we've been having and clarifying those numbers. Maybe it would be beneficial when we're looking at this again for the second progress monitoring, we're able to remember this discussion so we're not asking the same questions again. Because I know that if, it's nice that we're clarifying it now as we sit here, but for other people who are looking at this later and don't listen to our discussion and get that clarity, they may have the same questions. That might be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Castrodano. Very good. We'll add those notes.
All right, back to you, Dr. Border.
All right, thanks, Chair Jacobs. So that takes us to our key performance indicators, and we wanted to provide a review of where we are currently at with progressing towards our district scorecard outcomes for each key performance indicator. Our first key performance indicator is reducing our percent of low-performing schools, which is based upon our DNF schools. We're looking to increase the number of opportunities for parents to learn about grade level curriculum in our DNF schools by 30% this year. That would take us up to 31 opportunities this year from the 24 prior, and we're in progress and on track to meet that target. We're going to improve student achievement in English language arts by 3% in our DNF schools on the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking, ELA outcomes, STAR Early Literacy, and STAR Reading. We do not have school level data yet, as this is vendor file data. We're going to increase the percentage of parents that have accessed Skyward and Gradebook. The data you see here is district-wide data. 32.57% of our parents have accessed Skyward and Gradebook, and we want to increase that by 30% this year to 62.5%. We also want to achieve a retention rate of 65% or higher for instructional staff at our DNF schools. We finished last year at 55.7%, looking to increase to 65%.
If you can hold there for just a minute. Member Gould?
In the schools, and I would throw C schools in this too, but especially D and F, is there a higher standard for posting grades in a real-time manner? Because access is great, but if the grades are not completely up to date, you don't know where your child is.
That's left right now to schools as far as posting on Gradebook, Ms. Gould. Certainly, the more accurate the data is going to impact, could impact utilization. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, is there a consistent standard for inputting grades into Skyward?
Especially in lower performing schools. And is that something that we could do? I guess that's more of a question for the superintendent. Is if we have a school at risk or on the verge of becoming at risk, because I would say C's are on the verge of becoming at risk, is there a standard that we can set that, or a way to help them? I don't know. Is there grant money that could help teachers input grades? Because I know how stressful it is.
We just received the list from the state. I believe it might have been Thursday or Friday, with all of the ESSA ratings and the support that they will be receiving. I'm sad to say that we have quite a number of schools on that list. Some are on there just because one of their subgroups falls below the threshold, but they will be getting additional supports based on those ratings. Additionally, we are planning to take a look at the models that we use to support schools. The model that we use in STO, and then we have corrective programs. We'll have more data this year to be able to compare. What we have found is that the schools that are getting the intensified support through the School Transformation Office tend to perform at a C or higher level. And if they maintain that support, they're able to continue that. Sometimes when they move out of the STO structure, we see that some of them then fall back and then start earning a D or an F. And so it's going to take us a little bit of time to analyze the structures. Additionally, the smaller ratio that we have right now for our schools, as well as the makeup of those cadres. Not always, but geography does tend to align with some of the scores we've received in the past. Those schools that are in a more fragile area tend to sometimes have those lower scores, and because they were geographic and region, many of them were in the same learning community. So now they've been dispersed. As far as the support that the teachers are getting, that's part of what the feedback we're receiving from the principal leaders. As they're seeing schools that are getting this data, they're analyzing it. What are the additional supports that need to come either from the district office or from the cadres?
Thank you. That kind of answered my question, but not really. So it answered part of it. My question really has to regard of giving the parents all the tools that they need. So, one, do we know if those parents even have access at home or through their phone to our systems to look at it? Because their internet in some of those neighborhoods is still not very good. I know the county's working on it. And if not, what other way can we get the information to them? And secondly, is there a way when a school is at risk for us to make part of the resources of having grades put in real time? Because that is not consistent along the way. And if your child is good about bringing home their work, that's one thing. If, I had one that was and one that wasn't, and he had a strategy, the one that wasn't, of not bringing home those things or telling me he didn't get them yet or whatever. I continue, even though he's going to turn 30 next year, to throw him under the bus. Poor kid. But, I think if we really want to have an impact, we need to put all the resources we can as a district, but without really partnering with the parents or the groups that are in that community to help with this. There's no way we can sustain it. We'll keep on this roller coaster.
So we have expanded supports for schools, both through district initiatives and initiatives at the schools with their PEL, their parent engagement liaison, that are in all of our Title I schools. When it comes to grading and having someone input the grades, I'll be perfectly honest, the schools don't have the staff to be able to do that. We have had some conversations about grading and the amount of time sometimes it's taking for teachers to put in some of the grades, as well as the fact that sometimes students are turning in assignments late and the teachers are accepting it. And while we haven't landed on a final recommendation right now, it's hovering around looking at as a part of our policy. That if the board feels strongly about time frame that teachers have to input grades, that we put that in policy and make it part of the way of work for OCPS. And then what is a reasonable time for them to be able to do that? But at the school level, other than the teacher, there are some schools that have paraprofessionals, but the inputting of grades by somebody else, if I understood your question correctly, is not a reasonable expectation.
Okay, so we couldn't train volunteers or anyone, as long as they don't have a kid in that school.
No privacy.
Yeah, because of privacy issues. Okay. I know there's a lot of burdens on teacher, but I would like to trade a burden for that burden. If there's a way to do that, because I don't know how we can ask parents to be good partners if they don't have good information to partner with. And if you find out 3 weeks later that something happened, it's too late. And then you're catching up for 3 weeks where you might have been able to, lay down the law or take away a privilege until they could get their grade up if it's a week or two. But if you're now 3 weeks behind and you were behind before that, you're weeks and weeks behind as a child. So I this has been a struggle since I've been on the board. And I think this is that one thing that is the definition of crazy. So, we're expecting different outcomes, but we're not able to deliver in a different way. And we have more systems than we've ever had before. Are they harder for the teachers? How do we make it easier? I don't know that there is a secret sauce out there, but if there is one, that would be worth the investment. Even if kids have to scan in, and with AI, they could scan in their papers and have it go right to upload to their record probably. That capability's been around for a while.
No, they do. We have performance matters that can be used. I think this is a much bigger conversation.
Yeah.
I recently had a group of teachers that came from my advisory committee, and they're frustrated as well. But from the other end, that they are notifying parents, the grades are in there, and they're not getting a response from the parent. And then when the report card or the progress book comes out, now it's how many times does a teacher need to reach out to a parent to be able to say it's enough? And so I think this is good conversation, but certainly something that we need to have a broader discussion about, and it will bring in all of what you said: internet access, parent being able to understand how our systems works, teachers feeling that I've contacted them 3 times and now it's on the parent to reach back out.
Yeah. No, I know it's multi-pronged and it's complex, but if we can chip away at one component of it, I think we'll see things move farther, faster. I know we need to chip away at all of it, but we'll never control what parents do. But those that have a desire, if we can get them the info quicker. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Gould. Member Byrd.
I agree with you, Member Gould, but I think for me, when I look at this, the bigger question is, we are now at the end of the first 9 weeks, and we currently have, if I'm reading this correctly, only 32% of our parents district-wide, this is not just our DNF schools, right? District-wide have access Skyward so far this year. Is that not accurate?
Yeah. That's correct, Ms. Byrd. 32.57% so far this year across all of our schools. We ended last year, pulling up my notes, but I believe at 49% at the end of the year. So at this time of year, we're actually ahead of where we were at this time last year. But yes, to your question.
Okay, so that is what I believe to be a much bigger problem than even the one previously mentioned. Back in the day, report cards went home, parents had to sign it, you had to bring it back, and at least that way you knew parents were seeing grades. But there is no other way for a parent to get a progress report or a report card except to log into Skyward and to get those grades. So if there's only 32% of parents logging in at this point, only 32% of our parents have seen a progress report, and probably we'll see maybe a little bit more, we'll see a report card at the end. Am I correct?
I think there's a lot of variables with that, Ms. Byrd, that schools very well are informing parents of outcomes in other ways, such as parent-teacher conferences, open houses that just occurred, sending information home with students, other conversations. We're going to talk about talking points later this evening. And so this is the access to Skyward. But as far as parents that have actually seen progress reports and report cards, I think that percentage is much higher.
Okay, because they may have seen them maybe at like a parent conference or something like that, is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, parent conference, and many other ways the teachers are communicating with parents and vice versa.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I do know that when a student has like a D or an F, a message goes home. But I know from my experience as a parent, we don't send home report cards anymore. So, or at least my schools that I've been in did not. So not since we've gone to Skyward. So I just want to make sure that we're reviewing and looking at our, we've had Skyward now for like what, 2-3 years, maybe 3? Is it the 4th year? So I just want to make sure it is the best use. I mean, I know that we've invested and this is where we're at with it, and but 32% concerns me a little bit. So, thank you.
Understood. Thanks, Ms. Bird.
Member Castrodano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some follow-up questions about Skyward as well, where it says increase the percentage of parents that have accessed Skyward. Can we have that broken down into elementary, middle, and high school?
Yes, so we looked into that, Dr. Castrodano, and I appreciate your question on that. And so actually the team is looking into that right now. Our IT team and Division of Learning team are looking at how those reports can be generated moving forward. We currently do not have that information by grade level, but they are looking to see how they can set up that type of report in the system that we would be able to get it by grade level.
All right, thank you. And then another point I want to make is when I was a parent of a student in OCPS, I would log on to my child's account, not a parent account. So I wonder if you're getting accurate information.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a fair question, and so certainly something for us to look into.
Okay, thank you.
Great question and observation. Member Farrant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple questions. I was going to go back really quick just to the maybe a few things that you guys could gather information and then email us. But do you know when we got the math books last? Like when was the last time we refreshed all those math books? And then just kind of seeing, do the teachers feel like those books are giving them what they need to teach the students in a way that they're learning? Just from talking with just a couple math teachers, they were more in the younger elementary age. They were saying they were a little frustrated with the math books, that it kind of felt like we bought whatever was the cheapest versus whatever was the most effective. I'm totally just saying what a teacher told me. But I feel like if we can, I think we really need to see what is it that we're doing. Obviously, we're doing something that isn't working. So just check on that. Also, if we could see maybe the pre-COVID scores, maybe from 2018 to the 22-23 school year. Just so we sort of can compare and see if it really was that downhill or how that looks. And then I do agree with the Skyward, as a parent of OCPS kids myself, is very frustrating to use. Things will just come in as like a 0 or a line and my kids say that it's not missing, but the line means missing, and then they swear it's not missing. And then 3 weeks later, I find out it actually was missing, and so now it's late. I do feel there is a huge burden on these teachers, I think we need to have a high standard for our students, and I understand not every student is coming from a home where both parents are there to help them with their schoolwork and whatnot, but I think we really do need to have a high standard where we're expecting kids to turn their work in on time, and that if you turn it in a few days late, then you can only get up to this amount. And if you turn it in this many days late, because it is burdensome on our teachers. So that would be my suggestion for that. But I do think I agree with what was set up here already. Just to look into, is there anything else that we could use, a system that might work better and be a little more integrative? Is there a way to just do it through Canvas so teachers don't have to take it from Canvas and then move it to Skyward? It would be maybe a little more of an easy flow. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Ferrant. Member Gould.
Are most tests and quizzes administered on paper still, or are they electronic?
Chair Jacobs.
Up, Steve.
So, Board Member Gould, I'm speculating that a lot would be via Canvas and not paper pencil, but I don't know that for certain. There are benefits to paper and pencil as well, and some teachers and students prefer that form of feedback as well. So I don't know that we've necessarily ever pulled or looked into the data on that question.
I'm sure there's some IEPs and things that would need to do that, but if those answers are already going into a system, there should be a way for us to remove a lot of the burden of the grading from the teacher. I don't mean that they shouldn't still look and put notes and know what their kids are doing, but getting that grade up and in there and then seeing the kids who struggled with it, maybe even it's more of an automated system. The teacher has to review it before it's released to Skyward. But the more we could put automation in our teachers' hands, the more time they actually have to work with the students that need the help and celebrate the students that just rock it out. So, and I know that won't work in every instance, but again, if the majority of students are using technology, why are we not transferring that from, because it's all fields, it's all fields. So you can usually grab fields and build bridges from one place. I really wish Member Salamanca was here. She'd tell us how to do it. Because she'd tell us how to do it. But I just think we need to start looking at that technology, because the technology hasn't made it as easy as we want it to be for students. Or for teachers, and how do we make it easier so that they're not burdened by it, but actually supported by it more?
Thanks, Member Gould. And Chair Jacobs, if I could respond to one of Ms. Ferrant's questions, partial response, Ms. Ferrant. We're in the beginning of the second year of the new BEST standards and the new math textbook. So the curriculum team reviews the materials to ensure they're aligned with standards and benchmarks. And I noted your question about looking in to see if we'd be able to get feedback about the curriculum.
Dr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple of points. First, the curriculum is not the textbook. I want to make sure people understand that. We have a plethora of resources that are available on our management system so that teachers can pick and choose which resources they want to use based on the standard that's being taught. So if they don't like the textbook, and by the way, the textbook was selected by teachers, we have an entire process that takes somewhere about 6 to 9 months where teachers come in, They review it, they have conversations about it, they actually take them and they can try them out in their classrooms, but those books are selected by teachers, not the district. We do select from the state adopted list, and so we have to pick from those books. And if the teacher doesn't like the textbook, they can pick and choose what other resources are available to them based on the standard. I think you already mentioned that we've had it for 2 years, and yes, we've had conversations about AI. And as I have, found out probably when I was chief academic officer, that nothing is easy integrating it into OCPS's system. And they have to not only talk to one another, the amount of time and resources it takes based on the team that we have is not something that's done easily. But we definitely have started conversations about how we can use AI to help teachers grade, look at lessons for interventions. There's actually products already, and I think we're using one of them, Backpack, in some of our advanced classes, where it actually grades the writing for the teacher. The teacher, reviews it, but when you have a product and then it has to transfer from here to here, it's not easy.
Follow up, Member Bull.
I totally understand that. I've had to do a lot of computer system transfers in the healthcare industry. However, I think that may be something, if we're going to keep with these current systems as our base platform, I think that investment is something we should look at to bridge and maybe outsource that instead of try to doing it internally, to building those bridges. I don't mean buying another system. I mean, if Skyward and Canvas are what we think we're going to be keeping for the next 5 years, that would be on some of that, because I just don't know how we put more time. This is the biggest time consumption for teachers, right? Is grading. So how do we give them the gift of time? Maybe this is, and we'd need the numbers to know if we would get the ROI out of it, if we think this technology has a 5-year or whatever we think it is, shelf life. So, but that's just a thought.
And we are outsourcing. So we're currently outsourcing and trying to have a data warehouse. And
awesome.
It is awesome if it didn't take as long as it's taking, and it's quite expensive. And so we certainly are able to look at various tools that can help our teachers have more time to either work with students or, for planning. But the board needs to be aware that it's costly and it's time consuming. Simply because
one more thought on that. We have a university that has a lot of technology incubation because they're doing it for military. And a lot of that technology incubation is completely transferable. They may have solved a similar problem to this in something with similar code, or that may be something they would want to incubate. So that may be another kind of cool partnership between the education school, modeling and simulation computer science schools, and then OCPS. So there's just a thought I'm throwing out there for you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with what Member Gould. I think anything we could take off the teacher's plate, especially when it goes to grading, if we can integrate the system, she said it. So I don't want to rehash that, but I think that would be valuable to our teachers. I also agree with Member Ferrand. I think that we need to start getting tougher with our students, and if they get a zero, they get a zero. our strategic plan says that we offer a high quality education. If we're letting students turn in work late, we're letting them turn it in at the end of the semester. If we're bumping them, I know that at any rate, we really need to take a hard look and a hard dive on the practices that we're doing, because we're not teaching them the right message, and we're really not giving them the high quality education if we're more concerned, and I'm not saying we are, if we're more concerned about them passing the ELA and the Algebra 1 so that they can graduate, but we haven't done a good enough job of making sure that they will be successful at the end of that 12th year, because that's one of our strategic plans too, is to ensure that, and if they can't do that, if we're teaching them that they can willy-nilly turn things in anytime they want.
Member Gold.
Okay, so here's where I will disagree about that. We have different learners, and this isn't necessarily about work ethic. This is about structure and system right now to me. We have different learners who get bored and don't turn in homework. We have kids that take much longer to get the work done, and maybe they had too many things to do, and they tried to prioritize it and they couldn't get it all done, and so they couldn't get the work in. And then we have the ones who just blow it off. But if a child can put forth proof that they have mastered the information, that is where I have a problem with, and maybe it's more the weighting of the grades of homework versus giving a 0 or not giving a 0 on not getting your homework in. That's where I struggle, because our goal is to make sure each child has mastered the information. Not, but we try to do this, and not our system does this, try to make sure they all prove they master it in the exact same way in an assembly line manner. And that is not meeting kids where they are or they could be, because, again, back to my oldest one, poor thing. He ended up passing an AP test with a low B and got a D in the course because he didn't turn in homework. He was bored. And he didn't feel the need to turn in the homework because he knew the information. So I have, and he's a brilliant kid. He's a big time thinker. He's a lifelong learner, and bucked how we deliver in that system. A Montessori style school would have been better for him than a traditional school, but there isn't such a thing in high school, at least not in this community. So I hear what everybody's saying, and I want accountability too. I think there should be consequences when you're not doing something you're asked to do. But I just want to make sure that we're measuring the right thing when they walk across that stage, which is the mastery of the knowledge we were trying to deliver to them.
Member Felder.
Thank you, Chair. I so wish we had time during this wonderful deliberation to have teachers sit in on us and just kind of listen, and we hear them and they hear us. I know a lot of people have a hard time with dealing with the fact that when a kid doesn't do the work, it gets a 0. Why don't they just, give them what they make? But as a teacher, I still consider myself as a teacher, if a kid gets a 0 or 20%, they will never be able to, I don't care how much work they do, they'll never be able to make that up. And it comes again to how we're going to have to be, as much as possible, fellow board members, and how we help teachers manage time. They only have 52 to 53 minutes a class period. 20 minutes of that is done with clerical. roll calling, answering the office, doing this, doing that. So they really have literally maybe 25 to 27 minutes of real teaching time. So I hear all of what you're saying about the timing and how we're grading them and what they should do. There's just not enough time in the day, not enough time in the period to get all that teaching out that we need to get. And I know the school, we have all these alternative situations, because that's the key, an alternative moment. We have all of these people coming in, community people coming in, helping us to deal with helping our students learn. Again, children, we all know this because you guys that have children. Children don't learn the same way. They don't. This is why I'm so glad that this is a district that favors vocation and skills, because that's an opportunity for children to feel successful. But some of those books are written at a 10th grade level. And if they can't read, that's going to be a difficult time. But at least they can work with their hands and their skills. So I'm advocating that as we deliberate through this concern, I won't call it a problem, it's a concern because we're going to work it out, that we invest in more ways, and continue with the ways that we have in assisting our teachers in the classroom in teaching, because you don't have the time you think you do. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing with 3 of my schools. I'm following the matrix at the district with K through 2. And I only did 3 schools, but at 30-some, 40-some schools I have, I'm only going to try to do 3 this year. But it is a concern. And I believe as a board, we really take our time to try to go through all of the concerns. But it would be so wonderful if we could receive some serious superintendent feedback from some of our teachers. Now, I don't mean in the order of complaint, but seriously, like, how can we work this out? Because the bottom line, as Member Gould said, and Member Gallo, the bottom line is we want them to learn. There has to be a progression. The big argument in education is always proficiency or progression, but we want them to work toward proficiency, not just progression. So I know as a teacher how frustrating it can be when you have taught a subject or you've taught a lesson, and at the end of the 3rd week of that lesson, you give a summative review, and like nobody heard a thing you said. It just wears you out to no end. And then the parent is complaining that you're not teaching their child. So I hope that we can come up as we're talking with some ways to kind of assist teachers, and they will feel free to email us with me if you don't want to email the rest, but I'd like you to talk to all of us, and maybe you have some ideas that we can work toward to help our students move from progression to proficiency. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Felder. Before we move on, I know that the superintendent had Dr. Border reach out to each of us to go through this information. We have been meeting for 45 minutes, and we are on page 12 of 48, so we are 1/4 of the way through. And we have an awards ceremony that starts at 5. I think it would be in the best interest of the board to have a few minutes in between that period of time for a brief break, which means that we have about 30 minutes left. We are not, it's highly unlikely we're going to get through the remainder of the presentation. I'm sorry, I thought it started at 5. Okay. I'm sorry. Whew, okay, that's better. Okay, huh?
5:30.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, good. Yeah, okay. I don't know why I had it in my head it was 5, and I obviously. Okay, good. You thought it was 5? Okay. Oh, that's what I'm thinking of. Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. Yes, I had a meeting at 5. So anyway, I just want to remind the board we may not get through this, but just so that the board is aware that some of these discussions that may not be urgently related to the business at hand, we might schedule it another time. Member Kester-Dental.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And your point is taken. I will not belabor this, but I do want to add to the discussion because what I'm saying is going to be a little different. As far as it goes for the late work and whether we make that a 0 or when teachers enter the grade, I'd rather not make that decision from the dais. I would like to reserve that right to the teachers to make on a class-by-class basis. Every class is different, every teacher, every student, and the way they operate the class, I think they should have exactly that prerogative and that freedom, and when they need support, they can reach out for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kester-Dental. And I agree 100% with what Member Kester-Dental said. When I was talking about it, I wasn't referring to homework, or really referring not to meet students where they are. I think that that's important. And I do think that teachers have the objectivity and the knowledge of those students to do it best. So it should be best left up to the teachers to decide. The point that I was trying to make is in the situation that I think we found ourselves in, and that I think that we can all admit that we've found ourselves in, if we're realistic, is that some of the things that we're doing haven't been working. And we know this because we're looking at changing them. And so how do we adjust? And how do we align so that we are meeting our strategic plan and that kids are getting the highest quality education they can from OCPS? But I do agree that the teachers do know kids best, and they should get to determine what works well in their classroom. And now we are going to move on. We're going to move on with Dr. Board. Before we do, though, I have an email that says 5 p.m. So I think that's why we're all confused. An email that was sent to me, it said 5 to 6, and then reception immediately following.
So if you'll, I apologize. If you'll let me know or forward it to me, I'll address it with the individual. I have 5:30. I think some of the other board members have 5:30, but I'll verify what happened and ensure that calendars are better synced in the future. Again, my apologies.
No, that's fine. And I just read below the initial 5, and it says 5:30, so I stand corrected. I didn't scroll down. Go ahead, Dr. Border.
All right. Thanks, Vice Chair Gallo, Chair Jacobs, members of the board. Next key performance indicator is narrowing or eliminating the English language arts achievement gap. Looking at our metrics that we are looking at this year relative to the scorecard, we want to increase the percentage of English language arts standard-aligned classroom instruction as evidenced by trend data. We are currently at 56% this first quarter with a target of 62%. We're going to increase standards-based unit assessment, English language arts data analyzed by subgroups. Our target for our Black students is 45%. We are currently at 39%. For our Hispanic students, 48%, currently at 41%. English language learners, 38%, currently 31%. Students with disabilities, 30%, currently 24%. And economically disadvantaged, 37%, currently 39%. Finally, we're going to decrease the achievement gap as measured by our standards-based unit assessment, English language arts data, by subgroup. These are our gaps that are affiliated with our strategic plan and the district scorecard outcome. The target for our Black students, all of the targets are to reduce by 3% this year. So for our Black students, it's 29%, currently at 27. Hispanic, 20, currently at 23. English language learners, 35, currently at 28. Students with disabilities, 21, currently at 25. And economically disadvantaged, 18%, currently at 15%. Our next key performance indicator is our math achievement gap. Looking at our metrics that we are measuring, we're going to look at student proficiency on STAR Algebra and the Algebra End of Course exam, increasing at identified high schools to 34%. There are 15 high schools that are part of this group of schools that is being monitored. Level 1 and 2 elementary students will participate in 45 minutes weekly on Success Maker for intervention. Our target is that 80% of our students will participate 45 minutes weekly. We are currently at 86%. 80% of our teachers will attend math impact sessions for those teaching 6th grade regular math, 7th grade regular math, and pre-algebra. The target of 80% would equate to 225 teachers. We currently have 90 teachers that have participated. Those sessions are still continuing for this first round. And finally, Math Impact Training attendees will have student proficiency scores at or above 59% in 6th grade regular math, 44% in 7th grade regular math, and 65% or above in pre-algebra. All of those are 5 percentage point increases over last year. We are currently respectively 21% for 6th grade, 5% 7th grade, and 8% pre-algebra. Those scores will continue to increase on the standards-based unit assessments as the year progresses. Our next key performance indicator is our 3rd grade students achieving at grade level or above on the statewide assessment in English Language Arts. Our metrics, we're looking at 85% or more of our elementary administrators trained through the early literacy framework. We currently, the first round, have 100% of our administrators trained. Students participating in DIBELS, which are kindergarten and 1st grade students, will have an average score of 56% or higher. Kindergarten is currently at 13%, and 1st grade is currently at 18%. Those will continue to increase as the year progresses. PM 1, 2, and 3 results will be on track to reach 56% or higher on STAR Early Literacy. And as we referenced earlier with the vendor file data that we have currently, kindergarten is at 49% and 1st grade is at 50%. Students in VPK classrooms will also average 56% or higher on the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking and STAR, and we are currently at 38%. Our next key performance indicator is our participation and performance in meaningful accelerated pathways. We are monitoring district performance. We'll reach 82% for the middle school acceleration overall. That is a summative measure, and so that data typically comes in the fall and lags by a year. We're also monitoring that all middle schools will perform above 80% or higher, respectively. We're starting from 49% of the middle schools previously, and our expectation is that all middle schools will be at 80% or higher for this school year. High school, summatively, we're measuring that we will, as a district, reach 68% or higher. Annually, we're looking at each school respectively to be at 70% or higher. We're beginning with 45% of our high schools were there previously, and we're expecting that 100% of our high schools will reach the 70% or higher percentage. And finally, providing opportunities for elementary and middle school students for college and career acceleration. Our target is once per quarter for our elementary students and once per month for our middle school students. So total of 12 events this year, and so far we have had 5 of those events. Our next key performance indicator is increasing students' positive perceptions of classroom and school-wide culture. Our first metric, we're looking at the ratings through the student first semester survey to be greater than 36%, which is a 3% increase overall. You'll see shortly that we have 94 schools, of which 45 are secondary, participating in student surveys on Qualtrics. And so we will have this data, those thought exchanges run through the start of Thanksgiving, and then we will have those results to share with the board. We're going to increase participation on talking points each quarter for unique instructional staff that have sent a message and unique guardians that have sent a message. So our target is a 2% increase each quarter. We're beginning this quarter with 39.2% of our teachers have sent a message on talking points, and 32.9% of our guardians have communicated via talking points. We also want to increase attendance at school events as measured through ticket sales for our performing arts and athletic events. That's currently still in progress. You see where we ended that's a 5% increase, that target, over where we ended last school year. Our next key performance indicator is increasing our teachers' self-reported student resiliency and knowledge skill set. Here, our first metric is teachers that participate in the first semester thought exchange regarding resiliency will state they are confident in their knowledge of student resiliency. Staff are also participating in the thought exchanges at the 94 schools, and we will be looking for an 80% positive response. School participation in resiliency events, we're looking for 100% of our schools to participate. For the first round, we were at 93.4%. Teacher confidence after completing a course on resiliency, wanting an 80% positive response rate. Those courses just began less than 2 weeks ago, so that's still in progress as individuals are electing to take those courses. Principals and assistant principal resiliency training also is recently put into place, has started up, and we're looking at 90% participation, and so measuring that is still in progress. Our next key performance indicator is increasing our touch points for both in-person and virtual connections. Here, our first metric is the summative measure of having 740 or more touch points at the conclusion of the year. We want to attain at least an 88% positive response rate on our junior and senior internship surveys. Those students are still in their internships right now. They will take the survey upon completion this semester. We also want to attain at least an 85% positive response by our UCF educators that attend our Title I schools tours, and those tours are beginning in mid-October, so now and continuing. Our next key performance indicator is our retention rate of instructional and non-instructional personnel. Our current resignation rate for non-hourly positions is 2.7%. Our retirement rate for non-hourly positions is 0.61%. We have 108 employees in their last year of drop. And our exit survey confidence interval rating, we have a target of 90%. We are currently at 84.6%. Our next key performance indicator is our district wellness resources and the utilization of. Our first metric, we want to have 3 OCPS positive news stories by Awareness Month on our cancer screenings, and that is in progress. Matter of fact, our Mondays with the superintendent just had a session on breast cancer awareness. We will continue that in January and March as well. Communication to employees that have not had cancer screenings as recommended by CDC and or the American Cancer Society. We'll be conducting those in January and March, respectively, for those screenings. Employee wellness representatives will provide monthly communication to their team members on wellness activities. So once per month, we're looking at 8 times this school year. We're currently at 2. We're also going to conduct a thought exchange with our wellness reps to determine how else we can increase wellness screenings, and that thought exchange is slated to begin in approximately 1 week, and we'll be gathering that information and reflecting upon that feedback as we move forward. Our next key performance indicator is our district's internal and external satisfaction rating, known as our Net Promoter Score. The division chiefs are all conducting thought exchanges with their staff members, gaining at least a 60% participation rate. So far, the ones that are completed are at 72% participation. Schools are conducting thought exchanges with looking for 20% for families and 60% for staff. These percentages are the thresholds for accreditation. That's where they disseminate from. We have 94 schools that are participating this year in this pilot. So far, 71 schools have their thought exchanges scheduled and in progress and or completed. Of that 94 schools, there are 45 secondary schools who are also completing Qualtrics surveys with students, looking at a 40% participation. And so far, 43 of the secondary schools already have their Qualtrics surveys scheduled. Plans will be developed post completion of the thought exchanges and surveys so that we can implement plans that are based upon the feedback we have received, with the goal of attaining higher outcomes on our panorama surveys in the second semester. Our next key performance indicator is students' self-reported sense of belonging at their school. Our first metric is academic services, attendance rosters, and meeting agendas with lead counselors. There are 4 of those meetings per year, and their goal is to cover the topic of student sense of belonging at each meeting. So far, we are at 100%. Similarly, covering the topic of student sense of belonging at our cadre meetings with our principals and assistant principals. There are 6 principal meetings and 4 assistant principal meetings per year. And our summative measure here is 38% or higher for our student sense of belonging for middle school, 35% or higher for high school, with a 40% participation of students. And we'll have those results once all the Qualtrics surveys are completed prior to Thanksgiving. Finally, our next key performance indicator is our amount of available resources through innovation and collaboration. This is our procurement rebate metric. We have 3 metrics that are new this year. The first one is increasing the number of rebate resources, increasing the number of contracts with rebate options, and increasing awareness through targeted communication on contracts and initiatives with rebate options. As those are new metrics, they're all in progress. Next key performance indicator, increasing a high quality and responsive customer service experience. This is conducted by our information technology department. Customers who have an Easy Vista ticket are sent a survey. There has been a change this year where we are using thought exchange for this process, and it's being sent to all recipients versus every 10th recipient. So in the month of August, it went to 10,833 recipients, and in September, 7,825 recipients. So far, we're at an 84% satisfaction rating. The CIO visits with school administration will be continuing throughout the year, our Chief Information Officer, and also a goal of 24 automated service resolution workflows for common issues this year, of which 2 are already completed. Our next key performance indicator is reducing the number of classroom portables. All 3 metrics are in progress, the first of which is that all new schools will open on time. Portables identified as unneeded are scheduled for removal as the year progresses. And aligned with budgets in the spring, master schedules will be reviewed to ensure portable use for the 24-25 school year is needed. Our next key performance indicator is our volunteers and partners in education. Our first metric is increasing our volunteers. We currently have over 35,775 volunteers registered. Increasing our partners. We currently have over 1,298 partners registered. We want to increase the number of Read to Succeed volunteer tutors by 30%, which would take us to 204. We already have 297 registered for Read to Succeed. We want to increase the OCPS employees who volunteer to 3,188 or more. We are already at 3,350. We want to increase current corporate projects by 3%, taking us from 67 to 70. We currently have 48. And we want to document the number of businesses targeted and registered based on prospect research and or collaboration groups, which is a new metric for us this year. And we already have 11 of those that have taken place. Our next key performance indicator is our total dollars raised by the Orange County Public Schools Foundation. The first metric is the number of new donors will increase to at least 3,000. We have 359. Our retention rate will be 25% or higher. We are currently at 13.6%. Individual donors will increase to 4,000 or greater. We're currently at 1,405. We will increase followers to over 7,500 combined on Facebook and LinkedIn. We're currently at 1,392. And we want to increase donors to OCPS Gives, and the OCPS Gives campaign is just kicking off. Our next key performance indicator is our opportunities for stakeholders to provide feedback across all Orange County Public Schools divisions. The chiefs and deputy superintendents have visited 232 school sites. To this point, there have been 3 superintendent town hall meetings, and we've had 19 thought exchanges across divisions with stakeholders. Moving forward, our working groups will continue monitoring the progress of our Orange County Public Schools 2025 strategic plan. We're looking forward to a presentation to the board in February on our progress, and again in July on our school district outcomes, scorecard outcomes, and finally developing our portrait of a graduate this school year. Relative our portrait of a graduate, we'll be surveying students, staff, and families. There'll be interviews with students and staff. We're also looking to conduct focus groups, which will center on 12 industry sector focus groups. I'll be communicating with the board members moving forward on recommendations you might have for participation on those industry sectors, and then talking with the superintendent as we finalize participation in the focus groups so that we can establish a foundation for organizational practices across OCPS that will lead to positive student outcomes, known as our Orange County Public Schools Portrait of a Graduate. Thanks, Chair Jacobs, members of the board. Turn it back over to the superintendent for comments and discussion.
Dr. Border, I think you won the bet because you did. If we just take you speaking, you made it in the time frame. I do want to thank the team led by Dr. Border for their incredible work in not only gathering the information, but the cross-collaboration amongst the various divisions is unprecedented. And I know that that alone is going to help us provide better outcomes for not only our students, but for our employees and our families. Members of the board, we're open to any additional questions that you might have regarding the presentation.
Thank you. Let me turn to Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I want to thank Dr. Border and his team, and for everyone who collaborated on this information. This information is extremely helpful as a board as we move forward to make changes in the district that we know we need to make. Having these metrics that are tangible and quantifiable help us to look at where we need to go, where we were, and where we need to be headed. So I find it extremely helpful. And I think that I keep telling people this, but I think Dr. Border is like the perfect person for this role. I think he's doing a fabulous job in his role of overseeing the strategy. I really do. I tell the people that all the time, like this role was created for you. You're doing a fabulous job. A couple of things. The sense of belonging, and I know that we've talked about this as a board. I think that's the most important thing, because that affects every other metric on these slides that we went through. Because if kids don't feel connected, they don't show up, their attendance down, they don't put in the work, they don't turn in their homework or even their coursework during the day, they don't go to games, they don't build friends. It's just that apathy matters. And so really engaging students and creating that engagement is so important. And we do it through our partners, we do it through our volunteers, we do it through the arts, we do it through athletics. There's so many ways to engage students, but we've got to find that niche for them so that they have a reason to like and want to go to school. That's how we solve, in my opinion, some of the struggles that we're having in mathematics and ELA and just in proficiency and getting kids to where they need to be. We need to get them engaged. So the arts is so important. And I know I'm speaking to the choir, but it really does. I just went and saw Newsies at University High School. It was absolutely fabulous. These are IB kids for the most part, and they're doing IB theater, which I didn't know existed till I talked to Mr. Mendez. Like they're creating IB theater so that these kids who need that that want that IB track because they do have aspirations of going to really good colleges can still be involved in something that they love and they don't have to lose points for it. So doing more things like that with all of our arts, trying to up the game so that the kids that would like to go to college can participate and not have to make a choice between their weighted GPA and something that they love to do, I think would help with engagement. To consider that, because it's just, oh my goodness, we have so many talented students at our school. We're knocking some things out of the park. Like, we're doing a great job with our volunteers and with our partnerships. So we just have to keep up the good work there. I love the Thought Exchange. I think that's been a program that has given us valuable information, and that's information that Dr. Border and his team have been able to use to kind of present those metrics to us. And so I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward just to the information that Dr. Vasquez gathers, to how we take this information and we implement it so we can make improvements to our district. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Member Gould.
I just wanted to thank the team too, and I love the portrait of a graduate and really not doing that as much internally, but looking at what industry and the world needs, and then coming back and looking what our students need. And to build on what Member Gallo said, you know, arts and sports in particular have always been a way to build workforce skills, because there is a demand, there's an expectation. When you're in those, you have to play and plan in a collaborative manner. You also have your own responsibility of what you need to bring to the table each and every day. And those are all workforce skills. The more we can identify those skills and embed them into every classroom and get away from my favorite saying, rinse and repeat. And I know our teachers are very clever, and I know they're doing a lot of things that create collaboration. It's not their lack of desire to do it. It's the structure that we just, need to move to the way we want people to work and be citizens for the rest of their lives. We can't expect that they've been in an environment for 12 years and then completely transform when it's time to get into the work world. So the more we can do that, the more everybody's engaged, the more we're all excited to be together and learn together and do together and create and design together. That I think that's great. And this portrait of a graduate is an exact way that we need to be able to design that thoughtfully.
Thank you, Member Gould. With no further comments from the board, let me also say y'all did a great job. Thank you, Dr. Sasser, for joining us. Dr. Border, excellent presentation. And I agree with the comments of Member or Vice Chair that you're particularly well suited in this role. So kudos to you, and kudos to the superintendent for finding the right seat on the bus for so many of our leadership team. You have an excellent leadership team, and they're not just incredibly talented and committed, but they're a joy to work with, and that's a nice environment to be in. So hopefully your continued good work trickles down to all levels of the organization. I can tell you, when you're out at one of our schools with the superintendent, she has gone from being almost unrecognizable to being nothing short of a celebrity, and in a very, very positive way. The warmth that she receives when she walks into a school is, for me, really validating that this board made the best possible decision. We all wanted to see a culture change, and culture starts at the top. And I love the saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. But I also believe that culture takes time. And with we have 22 different high schools alone, the number of schools and the number of individual cultures that you can have in each school is a really daunting challenge. So anyway, Harold, we enjoy working with each and every one of you, but Superintendent, to you goes the credit. So with that, we are going to adjourn this meeting and we will reconvene at 5:30. So we actually do get a break. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.